Aloha and welcome everybody to another wonderful Soul Talk here on my podcast. And I'm so excited, and this is so exciting. I'm so curious about everything because we have Mell B in the house. Yes, no, we were joking about it earlier. We have Mell Balment in the house, and I'm so excited. She is the deep belief hacker, supports empathic thought changing business owners ready to shine brighter and leave a bigger impact on humanity. Having mastered her own multi-sensors, she now guides others to powerful calmness. I love this so much. Welcome and thank you for being here.
No worries.
The very first question, because I almost asked you before we started, but I want to take everybody in, because I love the multicultural diversity that we have here. And you already told me that you are from Scotland. How did you, because I know we're talking on the other side of the world right now. You're in Australia, right?
Yes.
How did that happen?
How? Well, it's not hard when you think about it. Like Australia, Scotland, pretty sure it's a no-brainer. With sincerity, though, it was for love. The best thing in the entire world. I met my now ex-husband, whose name is Reagan, and that might come up again. He was touring from Australia in Scotland. We're a blind date, story short. And I immigrated because it's like, why not? Like, you're obviously not going to stay here in the cold. I'm going to go to the warmth. Didn't quite work out that way. I didn't know. I still struggle to comprehend how big Australia is. And it's got all these different climates. What? So I ended up down south and it was cold for 13 years. And then I had enough and went, I moved to Australia, darn it. I'm going north. And that's where I am now.
Nice. That's very beautiful. And how did you become, what you're doing right now? Hold on. Maybe let's start with your story first, because you said you went through a lot of things before you started to support others. How is your story? Tell us about you.
Ooh. Do you want to define that? Because there's a lot of different ways. What do you really want to start with? Because literally I could start anywhere.
Tell us about that part where you said, mastering your own multi-sensors. How
All right.
for you?
Well, I will kind of paint the picture a little bit to help stop the curiosity that I probably just opened up with, like, where do you want to start? I was raised in what some people call a trailer park, but we called it the mobile caravan park because we don't have trailer parks. I'm sure it's the same thing. And it was hard, as most people in that environment would probably attest to. It's society doesn't really accept you very well. Anywho, was raised with that kind of poverty and hardship financially. And then on top of that, my stepfather, who raised me from the age of 4, was a pedophile. So I guess the question is, how do you end up from there all the way here 40 something years later to be an advocate for men, to be an advocate for equality and be okay with what I had as the beginnings of life. So I'm kind of just going to launch that and lob that back over the fence tennis metaphor there for you and ask whatever you would like to go from there. What do you want to know?
Yes, how did you become that? Because I know you're specialized on supporting businesses. How did you find out that that's where you wanted to help?
Okay. Do you coach people?
Yes.
You do. Have you ever had a client that you have this amazing session with them? It goes really well. And you're like, yes, transformation, boom, breakthroughs, all the rest of it. And then you've got the next session booked. And then between that last session and the next session, you're texting and you're confirming and you're following up, and they start ghosting you. And then they don't turn up to the meeting that's already booked into your diary. And you're like, what happened? Well, that's one of the things that I love to do, is help other coaches to help their clients, particularly when they're on their path to success and they start to hit their next roadblocks, because that's what I've had to navigate along the way. It's the next ceiling, the next block, the next discomfort, or I don't like the term comfort zone, but the next expansion of our safety net. And the way I worked out to help more people is by partnering with tacticians, the strategists, the business coaches, and bring the mindset in to hack the blocks, because those are generally the service-based industries that are making their ripple effect. So I actually get to tap into two other parts of humanity. And so it's like a 50 times win, which is awesome, because that's fully leveraged. That's helping more people serve. And when you do that, life gets better for everyone. Definitely. I don't know if I've answered how I got into it, but.
Well, it answers the passion that you have for it, definitely, to get there. And I think also because, I mean, like you said, you had to go through a lot for yourself to, you know, overcome all the obstacles you have, and now you're supporting and helping other people overcome their obstacles as well. What would you say, like, how did you, because you mentioned how your upbringing was, what helped you come out of it? Because, you know, a lot of the times when you think of the caravan, you said caravan parks, right? When you think of that, or at least you hear of stories of people that it's hard for them to come out of that. What helped you get out of it? Like, what motivated you, and what kind of people surrounded you for it?
Cool. Okay. I left home at 15 to escape the circumstances, and I haven't always been a book reader. Like, I was always a bookworm, partly because I was bullied at school and the library is a safe space to kind of retreat to, partly because you can escape into other worlds. And I love the famous five and all those adventure books. And I definitely know that they played a part in my adventurous nature now. And after I'd been out of home for a couple of years and I was struggling financially, you know, I basically started as the photocopy clerk, right at the bottom of the bottom of the bottom. And it wasn't well paid. So I was struggling as a 15-year-old to pay bills. Like, I had to grow up really quickly. And one of the things that I did was aspire to be an executive assistant. They were these glamorous, gorgeous, wonderful women who were just like, what? I would just photocopy for them. And I remember having a conversation with one of them and saying, how do I be like you? And I don't remember the ins and outs of the conversation, but it led to me reading a book about personal development. I didn't know it was personal development at the time. I can't even remember the title of it now, but I do remember the conversation left me inspired to go and read a different type of book. Mm-hmm. And that then led me down a bit of a spiritual path in some contexts, the Celestine Prophecy, books about angels, The Secret, that sort of stuff, way back when, like 30 years ago, whenever they all came out. And then not long after, within a couple of years, I remember seeing a, advertorial on TV. And it was this really vivacious man advertising a lifestyle, I suppose, a way of being, and that we're not victim to our own circumstances. Mm-hmm. And what has happened to us can make us stronger. And that really resonated with me, mainly because I had no choice. I don't know, I just had that mindset going, well, I'm not going to roll over. Although I did attempt suicide in school, in primary school, no, high school. And so I remember buying a set of cassettes, a cassette series, for those of us who are old enough to know what that means. And it was Tony Robbins, way, way, way back in the day. And I can definitely, again, credit some of my philosophies, views of the world, that life is a choice. Shit happens to all of us in different depths, different, I don't know how else to describe that without getting gross. And you just got to wash it off and carry on. Otherwise, oh God, I don't know where I'm going with this metaphor, but anyhow, it can make life harder, or you can accept it and decide to move on from it. And that was very early, probably before I was 19, 20 years old, that I took that approach to life. I've completely forgotten what question I was answering.
No, but that was just perfect, because I was asking, what helped you come out, out of the situation that you were in.
Yes.
And that's beautiful, because I mean, I think it's amazing because you found something very early on that brought you on that, I'm going to call it spiritual journey, where you looked at how you can, empower yourself to get out of wherever you are and to create the life that you want to have. Like you said, it's about saying yes to life, and you did that for yourself and created an amazing life. And I think that's so awesome. And I love how you started, you went into that journey, but you were saying also that you were looking up at the executive assistants. Did you ever make it to that part?
Oh, yes. I was the youngest. Back then it was secretary, PA, and then EA. That was the path. Well, office junior. I was the youngest of all of those roles in the oil companies that I worked for. And I immigrated at the age of 25. So that gave me a little under, I would say, not 10. I didn't start off straight away, maybe a couple of years in. But by the time I left at 25, I was one of the youngest EAs in the collective team. And then when I immigrated at 25, I jumped straight into a very senior role in Australia and became, top of my game, and was hired for chairmans and boards, and I traveled with my executives. So yeah, I definitely made it. I called myself a professional EA for 24 years.
Nice.
Mm.
And then at some point you started bringing in the spiritual side more and more, right?
I think it was always there. I think, when you're in the corporate or that kind of work environment, the spiritual doesn't really, it's just part of your social life, I suppose, that spiritual way of being. But I would always receive comments from people that they liked my energy, they liked being around me. And now I have a completely different concept of what that is. But yeah, so I think it's always been with me. And it took me when I started, leapfrog forward to when I became a coach, which was 8 years ago now. I didn't accept my healing and the quantum stuff for about 3 years. So even that was a transition, because there was a lot of imposter stuff about, I'm not a healer, I still have a healer, I'm still messed up. And then I had my spiritual awakening, and it definitely kind of like slapped me in the face of, come on, you've got work to do. Yeah. You are gifted in this way. And once I started doing that, I haven't looked back, and I am full-blown spiritual. But what I like to do is kind of take the step back, because I've got this corporate, I love wearing suits still. I love parts of that, although I could never go back to getting a job. It would literally crush my soul. I like to bridge that gap for the transitioners, for the people who want to maybe bring elements into their life. How do they do that whilst have the security of the job? Just a second, my cat is scratching at the door, and I'm worried she's going to. I tried to lock you out, kitty.
She wants to be part of it.
She'll jump up there in a second.
Yeah.
Anywho, yeah, so that's what I do now.
I really like that because I mean I didn't tell you before. I attended 10 years. No, how do you say? I had for 10 years I was in the corporate world as well, and
Mhm.
I didn't make it to executive, but I made it from team assistant to personal assistant to the CEO, which is similar because here in
Yeah,
Germany the systems are a little bit different. So I was a mix of EA and PA to the CEO of
yeah.
the company. So
Just
I
depends on
really,
the job, the company, the structure. Yeah.
yeah. But basically, so for if you look at job wise, I really jumped and went to the top. I couldn't go any higher job wise in there, and I didn't even want to. I didn't have that that um eh, ambition to become that part. For me, team assistant was fine, but somehow it just fell into my lap, and I couldn't say no to that part because I was Spanish speaking in a company that needed Spanish speakers. So when they opened up a small, how do you say, like a daughter company, that and the CEO needed someone, it was like, okay, it's a low brainer, take her. um so but what I meant was, and I had the similar, or one of my struggles back then was because I had already started my spiritual path. I had started to learn shamanism and be with spiritist people and learn about all these things, but it always felt like it was two people, my personal, my private person, and then going in there, until a friend of mine actually said, you are this 24 hours. You can't, you're not stopping being a spiritual person when you walk into the office, and and it's the same. You're not leaving the office just in the office. You're also the corporate person when you go home. So
Yeah.
to embrace all that. But for me, the my path led me to become a coach myself, and a little bit different. But um, that's why I love that you are part of the people that are embracing that change, because I feel especially the last 3 years have sort of woken up a lot of people, or maybe not woken up, but made them aware of certain things more, and especially that spiritual side. And I believe that there's so many more people, and even corporate world, entrepreneurs and from all kinds and walks of life that are, going more into that. And that's why I think it's so important to have people like you that are, helping companies to bring both of those sides together, and to bring them,
Mhm.
because we were talking about intuition and how important that is.
It's interesting. I was networking last week. I don't know, in the last couple of weeks. Somebody was asking me what I do, and then she went, "I'm in charge of an IT department, and in like the supervisor to the EA team, of which there's 5 or 6 members, and they're having a lot of challenges. Apparently, she's like, "Can you come in and work with the team?" It's like, "Yep, that's absolutely what I would be great at bringing it," because I've worked with executives and I've been an executive coach, and I have the personal experience as an EA. So to be brought in as an expert from external to look at it objectively and have the true understanding. And I think that's a big problem, is there's not always people who've walked the path to be able to help them understand some of the complexities that they're dealing with.
Yeah, and I feel, especially as assistants, it's so amazing when we have that, that spiritual side, that intuitive side that helps us do the whole work that we're doing. It's so, like, I remember doing my juju, my woo woo, my spiritual stuff at work, without anybody knowing, because of course, I mean, it was part of me, so I was still doing it, and I remember having things like, colleagues wanting some, that was one of the things that learned me to actually be calm, because I remember, colleagues from all over the place coming and saying, "Oh, we need this by tomorrow. We need this by tomorrow." And so I would have my list of things, and I would always, I don't know why, because I couldn't understand back then. Now I know it way deeper, but back, I was just like, I would do whatever wanted to happen. And then sometimes certain things would fall off, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't get to do it today, so I'll have to do it tomorrow in the morning. Oh, no, mind, I'll do it in the morning then. Because at some point you need to go home. And then the next day in the morning, the colleagues would come up and say, oh, by the way, we don't need it anymore. So it was like, huh. something inside of me already knew you were not gonna, so I'm not even putting work in
Mhm.
there. And that was, that was just a little bit of, oh, so that's how the intuition can work, at work. So just to follow
Yeah,
that more.
I love it. I love that we've walked such similar paths. It's
Yeah.
very cool.
What would you tell, like, if we have EAs listening in, what would you tell them to how to learn to listen to that intuitive side of them?
Well, I'm creating a workshop for this. As I say, somebody just asked for it, so I'm working on that. So ask me in 24 hours.
I'll put
The
the links below.
when I've finished developing it. Um, it comes back to a lot of things, is understanding ourselves. And as an empath empowered, or whatever that means, let me explain that for people, is we all have gifts. And that word can be interpreted as spiritual and a bit woo-woo, but we don't question athletes being supremely talented and gifted in a certain area, or musicians just from a very young age knowing what to do with an instrument. It's not about education. They have a gift that is innately with them. We are all born with gifts. The problem is some of those gifts, unless they've been nurtured in certain ways, are made to be wrong. And so we tune out and we ignore. So we actually all have intuition, gut instinct, a knowing. Yeah. But we kind of listen to the noise of our monkey mind instead. And ego has some pretty strong agendas most of the time. And rather than listening to the quiet suggestions of our wisdom, of our callings, of our heart, sometimes this is the right thing to do, instead of listening to it's always a suggestion, it's a choice when it's our truth. Ego is a command, a demand, it's got attitude, it's louder. So if we can stop listening to the noise of our chatter mind and tune into the whispers, magic can happen. As you gave the example, we can have a list of 3 things, and without avoiding, and that's the mastery of it. We've got to know when we're avoiding something or when it just doesn't feel right to follow through on. But if you listen to those whispers, that's not for me to work on right now. Maybe tomorrow I'll have a fresher inspiration to do it more efficiently. Or as you said, part of you already knows this is going to be a waste of time. I'm not going to start it because by tomorrow, and that happens all the time to me at the moment. Yeah. I just trust I've got 3 things, and it's like which feels, and it gets a bad rap. Follow your feelings, but it gets a bad rap because people haven't got the mastery to discern the difference between avoidance and intuition of saying that's actually not important as we think it is. So it kind of helps, maybe doesn't help. There was a thought I had while I was speaking there about, and this is what we can do, is invite our thoughts to come back to us. It's like I parked it and now I'm going to try and access it again by saying, yes, I'm listening to you. Oh, that's frustrating. Bring it forward. Anyway, maybe I'm not meant to share it. So intuitively, I'm going to move on. Doesn't matter. Maybe it'll come up again. So that's the suggestion I've got first, is to meditate or to find quiet time to pay attention to the wisdom that's within us.
I also love that you mentioned that part of maybe I'll be more inspired the next day, or in an hour or something, because I think just listening into yourself, in if we push something too hard, if something is not flowing by itself, that's just a sign too. If it's I always make fun of, or not make fun, but I always say very playfully that my computer tells me when to stop working, because if
Yes.
something is not flowing, it's like, okay, I either, depending on the time of the day, I either need to go take a walk Go eat something, or go to sleep, and then, come back freshly after an hour or something, and then you're and this is something I think also that I started learning in the corporate world as well. Because one of the things why my bosses loved my work was because I was very well networked, and I did that because whenever I felt like it wasn't flowing at the table, I would get up, I would go and talk to the IT people, or to, like, I had my people all around.
Yep.
So I would go and hang out with them, and it's not like you said, it wasn't procrastinating or pushing things away. It was, hey, genuinely, like, how are you? What's going on in your life? Like stepping out of my energy where I was at, and then when I
Mhm.
would come back, it was just like, okay, now it's flowing again. And that's
Yeah.
wonderful.
This sitting in a box, staring at a box, all of the boxes. Oh, it's so restrictive. It's just stagnant. How can we be creative? And I hadn't realized how creative I am until I got out of the corporate world. They have these suggestion boxes. None of mine were ever implemented. I was always making suggestions.
Yeah.
I was ahead of my time. I came up with ideas that were about inclusiveness, and no, it's never going to work for me.
I'm sorry, but I'm not laughing at, like,
I
it's
know.
just, I resonate so much because one of the last things that I tried before I left the corporate world was, I mean, it wasn't an international company. We had, people from all over the place. And I mean, now, my background is, I'm very multicultural. And I was like, guys, like, you don't need to buy anyone to do, multicultural training or whatever, or help, be the mediator between the cultures. You have the living person there. Why don't
Yeah.
you use me? And I had my bosses, helping me, with giving me time. Go talk to HR. Let them do everything, because they had a special program to help people, and I was there. I'm like, hey guys, I'm here. You know, what's going on? You can use
Leverage this
me.
massive asset that speaks multiple languages, that has been exposed to multiple cultures. Like, this is a couple of $100,000 worth of intel standing in front of you.
Exactly. And nothing.
Mm.
But yeah, so that's why I resonate so much with you. It's like so many ideas, and that's what one of the things that I love. And maybe I don't know if you're noticing, because you're closer than way closer than I am, but um I feel that even the corporate world it's not as fast as smaller businesses, but it's moving and changing and becoming more aware. Like, I feel we're having way more companies, being more open-minded about who the talents and the assets are of their workers, so that they can, use that way more. For me, as I'm also, sorry, I'm also a multi-potentialite, or is it multifaceted person. So I always need, also different kinds of input for myself. So I also work as a virtual assistant, and I'm so happy that I have clients that love what I do, and for whatever I can't, because it's just not my thing, they'll bring in other people that have their strengths. And I love how you can choose that nowadays, as at least in the, in the entrepreneurial world, where you can, I'm going to need a VA for this, I'm going to need a VA for that. So you choose the right people with the right things. And I think the corporate world is sort of, it's turning that way a little bit more. I think the human resources are learning to look at their people a little bit different, right?
Yeah, I haven't been working with HR that closely since I left 8 years ago, but I think COVID definitely has shifted a lot of lives to be designed, jobs to be built around families, and skills and experience to be integrated into different facets of life. So I absolutely think it's inevitable, and you can go back. They've opened that flexibility now.
Mm.
Zoom I was using Zoom long before COVID, and then suddenly everybody knew what Zoom was within 6 months. Massive shifts in the flexibility and the accessibility And I think that's only going to benefit some of our minorities and some of the other parts of our society and cultures. So it's exciting times for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And you're part of the, part of the group that actually starts modeling it for everybody. Because you're
Yeah,
doing it
yeah,
together.
yeah, absolutely.
I love that you're doing this, like you mentioned earlier, this mix of, on one hand, you need the structure, you need someone who gives you the structure to create it. But on the other hand, you also need the mindset. You also need, the spiritual side of it, because, and this is something that I also learned, even, being a spiritual person. But at first I was so, I really got myself caught up in the structure. Like I had too many, online schools to teach me how to build my business. They gave me all the structure, but that was like, I mean, it was okay, but it wasn't, something was always missing, and it always only got me so far. It was like there was something missing. And ever since I brought in my own, like, okay, let's bring in my spirit guides, let's bring them in. What do they, like, where do they want to take me today or tomorrow, or, then for the next week? And that changes so much. And I think it's such a great thing that we are already starting to like I said, to integrate all that, because we don't stop being, like, if you take a Christian, because I think that's like the religion of many people know, or whatever religion we have, or a Muslim, or a Christian, they're not gonna stop being a Christian just because they go into their corporate job, right?
Right.
Or they're not going to stop being a Muslim if they go into their corporate job, and they lie
Wisdom.
about it. So why do we do that with our spiritual side?
Right? Because society's made it wrong. That's why. And it could be because some of us try and bring it in and it hasn't got a place. So that can be a challenge when it's actually not appropriate in the same way some of the other cultures. When it's about allowing it to be part of us and how we integrate it into our work. Now, that's one of my favorite things I do with other light workers, other coaches. How do you integrate your intuition, your empathy, your gifts into your business so that you can trust decisions? If you're approached by, uh, if you get an inbox invitation to join a business, often your instinct that it's an MLM is correct. But having said that, what partnerships, what opportunities, what invitations feel right? And just trust that. Otherwise, your to-do list is forever out of control. And if you follow that instinct of what's calling you at that point in time, at that moment of the day, can really take you in powerful directions and amplify your success in easy flowing ways. And the phrase that some of us require structure to be flexible. But that's true. I mean, it's a little bit giggly, but one of the questions I get asked a lot is, what's the discipline or what's your daily routine? That's the opposite of what I'm trying to help you understand. But I get why they're asking it. It's like, how do you be in flow with everything else that's going on? And we do have this, I'm lucky I don't have children, but there are things that need to be done, and there are things that the clocks have to be followed and adhered to. So I get where they're coming from, is how do you build in space, time? How do you carve out blocks that are for specific creative or projects that can have a variety of different approaches? And how do you create that space? I get why they're asking. It's kind of cute though.
I know, and but on the other hand, it's so beautiful when you start seeing, like you said, the structure, but also the flexibility. Because one of the things that I struggled with for a long time was, because I felt like I'm not focusing, like I'm not doing I'm not following that. I actually felt like this. I'm not disciplined enough, because I would start something, like the morning routine or whatever, whatever the coaches were telling me to do every morning. Get up at 6, write your gratefulness journal, and
Yeah.
but I have to say for myself, and that's also something that I teach all my clients, is listen to yourself. Are you a person that does that? Because just because you don't follow that daily routine doesn't mean you're not disciplined. Because do
Mm-hmm.
you practice gratefulness? It doesn't have to be like every morning. I always tell them, don't do it just every morning. Like if you're a person that needs that, do that. But it's way more effective if in the moment you have something that is grateful and where you're grateful for, and in that moment you suck it in and you feel it for a couple of moments. That's way more potent in your life than if at night you write down 3 sentences that you just write down because someone told you that you have to.
I totally concur with that. And people think, oh, it needs to be half an hour's worth of gratitude and great. No, it can be 3 seconds of going, can I swear? That was freaking awesome. And I'm so grateful. I'm so happy that happened.
Yeah.
Okay. Carry on with the day. It doesn't have to be, that's the opposite of what we should be doing. That requires discipline. Years and years and years. I know that because I did study Buddhism for 4 years.
Mm.
Very insightful. Not for me. The other thing that people can Google and look up is chronotypes. Chrono, chrono as in time.
Mm-hmm.
I only maybe 2 months ago discovered I'm a dolphin chronotype. What does that mean? I don't have routine. Dolphins sleep they don't just sleep at night or during the day. They don't have like a sunrise schedule. They feed whenever the opportunity is there. They sleep whenever they're tired. That routine is very much about flow, whereas other personality or characteristics or humanness are more of the hibernationary types, bears, or the lions that are more packs. And so even the way that we're built is unique in what works for one. We're not robots. We do not all fit into the same molds. There is many variations, and the key to self-mastery is working out all the different parts that make us up and try and get as good as possible at understanding those.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you're saying that because I'm gonna do the test because I'm probably a dolphin as well, and it took me so long for me to accept that side of me. So if you're someone listening in right now who feels the same way, it's okay. We are a little bit different. Not all of us are the same, and it's good to have a structure if you need it that way. But let me tell you, even as a non-structural person, you have your own sort of structure. We have our own
Right.
sort of structure the way we function, and it's okay to be that way. And it's amazing how much acceptance and how much you get done once you start accepting that, like
Yeah,
I
because
said
you're
earlier.
working with yourself.
Exactly. Instead
Yes.
against you. Yeah.
Because I know after I've eaten my evening meal, I could easily and have multiple times work for another 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
I'm not tired. I get a second wave of energy because that food, it makes sense, but some people get more sleepy or get more relaxed. For me, I'm like instantly, woo, I could power up. So interviews in the evening are really good for me. Doing deadlines, really good because then I know I want to get to bed at some point. So doing focus work in the evening, I've got that morning slot when I'm freshest, but then I get second wave. So go with what you know works. And Parkinson's law is a real thing of we will use every bit of time to the latest minute possible before we have to deliver something. People are good by deadlines. So Parkinson's law.
That's also a beautiful, beautiful thing to have. No, and like you said, I think it's so important to just listen to that and allow yourself, because it might be something today and tomorrow might be something else. So allow yourself to also just feel it. Because I mean, on top of that, for us with the female hormones running through our bodies, we also have the 4 weeks of moon cycles going through, and that also Especially I feel like for us, we have our days where we're more creative, and then other days where it's just less, and it's okay to have that, no matter.
Well, I don't want to poo-poo you, but I don't have any hormones anymore. I went through chemo, which shut down all of my hormones. So a hormone replacement is not an option. So it's actually sometimes good, sometimes bad. It's really hard for me to sleep and stay asleep. So I take things to help me sleep. And then if I wake up, my mind's murky. So sometimes it's easier for me to get up and just do something until I kind of drift off. I don't put all that, like, this is my night lights. I don't put these on at night. I try and stay a little bit in the dark and work on something, but reading, get my mind off again. So yeah, the hormones, totally get it. Yeah, we aren't cyclical, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Creatures. But some of us have more than others.
And what you just described could be something that could be happening to me with hormones as well. So
So true, because even the hormones everybody's
yeah.
got different quantities and levels and uniqueness.
Yeah, that's true. This is so beautiful. Oh my God, I just looked at the time. How do you, like, what is you already said you help other light workers as well, but like, if someone feels like, oh my God, Mel, you really resonate with me, I would like to work with you. What's the best way? Like, what is it that you offer? Like, in specific, what kind of programs do you have?
Cool. So there's two ways. If you're a coach who would like to partner with me to help your clients get around their blocks, because the thing is, we don't know our blind spots. Ego creates blind spots, and they're called blind spots for a reason. I don't know my blind spots. I have a healer who helps me. So if you have clients, you want to stay focused on your expertise, reach out. So my website has all of these options. Mell Mell with two L's, so MELLB, all one word, .com. I could not make it any shorter. Literally 4 characters is the shortest website URL you can have. So mellb.com. And in there, you can look at partner with me. That's for other coaches who may want to bring me in to be their mindset coach and mentor. Or if you want to work one-on-one with me, have a look at my programs. There's a few options in there. And under resources, heap of free stuff, recordings, meditations, tools, particularly around empathy, which is my area of expertise. Lots of stuff in there because not everybody has the budget to be able to hire a coach straight away. So there's something for everyone, depending on where you are, whether you're an employee, whether you're a light worker, you're a business owner. I actually have made everything simple to see and host workshops at the right levels, etc. So hopefully that helps.
I love this so much. We're going to put it all in the show notes and see there, so that you can find everything. And Mel, thank you so much. I think it's so inspiring, your whole story, everything, how you went through and what you've overcome. I love how you love life. And I hope this is an inspiration for everybody out there to say yes to their own lives and to see how we can create no matter what, no matter what circumstances we had before. Today, you can start choosing to make a difference and to create something different. And thank you, Mel, for sharing that with us. Thank you so much.
You are welcome.
Do you have like one last thing you want to tell our audience, our listeners?
Yeah, that just triggered the thought. So if you've never read it or heard of it, The 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware, she was a palliative carer. The regrets of people who have died in their last days. I do not want to get to that point where I've regretted not living all in. So if you wonder how that book is great, giving you those perspectives, going, why live by somebody else's standards? Why hold back by fear of being judged? I don't give a shit what people think about me because I'm living my life. If you're going to judge me or troll me, I don't care. You have zero impact on me. I mean, I care, but I'm not going to let it stop me. I don't know you. You don't know me. You can say whatever you want. And that's the kind of attitude and empowerment we need to have as empaths, because we do feel the feels.
Yeah.
Live life without regret.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. Thank you so much. I'm just going to leave it out there. Thank you for being here, for being my guest here. And thank you for everybody listening in today. I hope you can take as much as possible out of this wonderful soul talk. And for everybody, have a wonderful weekend and have a great time. And as always, keep surfing your energy wave. Bye, everybody.